Mandukya Karika, Pranam Mantra. Om Bhadram Karne Vishnuyam Deva Bhadram Pashe Makshabhirya Jatra Sthirairangaye Sustuvagung Sastanovihi Vashema Deva Hitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashrava Swasti na Pusha Vishwaveda Swasti na Stakshyo Aristanemi Swasti no Brihaspati'r Dadhatu Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. The discussion in Mandukya Karika is kind of winding up, slowly coming to a close. So here, today we'll be covering verse number 57. Actually, we had a very short discussion on verse number 57, but it's related to the next verse where Maya is being defined. So just let's have a quick recap of what exactly Maya is, how Vedanta looks at Maya, because very often people confuse with Maya. In the simplest example of Maya is when the real knowledge gets covered by ignorance. What is Maya? Real knowledge covered by ignorance. Incidentally, before I continue, quite often I come across certain questions where people keep on asking about this and that point. My only request is that if you listen to these talks from the beginning, have patience. Don't think that you can get a quick solution to deeper things of Vedanta. You'll get all your answers. Anyway, so when the real knowledge, when the correct knowledge is covered by ignorance. What is ignorance? Now, we first defined Maya. Maya is being defined as the power that covers knowledge with ignorance. Ignorance in what form? Says two. Non-perception or a wrong perception. Sometimes you fail to see something. This happens very often when our mind is colored by prejudices. Whenever our mind is covered by prejudices, recently I've been coming across one lady. She writes a lot on Quora forum, and she seems determined to undermine everything that the rishis have done and everything that Hindu scriptures talk about. Quotes are selective. I don't think she has studied. And if she has studied, then there is non-perception. For some reasons, she doesn't want to see. So either you are not seeing it, it's hidden from you, or you are seeing, but you are seeing wrongly. Now, very often the example that we use is of rope and the snake. There is a wrong perception in that. There also the knowledge is being covered by some kind of ignorance. And then there is also non-perception. For example, when we cannot see too big a thing, when we cannot see distant things, we cannot see things which are very near. There are also examples of Maya only. So Maya is a term used as overarch. It covers too many connotations, too many ideas, and different kinds of ignorance. Every kind of ignorance where there is non-perception or wrong perception is covered under Maya. And to give you an example, like Swamiji said beautifully that a mother loves her son, and that son is a blackguard, and that son abuses his mother. Earlier, we didn't have these problems in India. Now, from the time that People have started criticizing Hindu values and all. These things have increased, and we even hear of cases where someone murders his parents. It's very sad. Wife, they're getting their husbands killed. Very sad affair. We didn't have these things earlier. I mean, we cannot go back. We cannot go back to what it was, and we must not. However, the kind of cruelty that we are seeing all around, born of materialism, is pathetic. So, mother knows that her son is a blackguard and is abusive. He exploits, and yet she cannot stop loving him. Me, you, all of us, we must have faced such situation in our life when we wanted to get out of some relation, but we could not because our emotions were so powerful that sometimes even when we wanted to get out, we couldn't. This is Maya. And at other times, we didn't see which everybody else was seeing. And at other times, there was no signal, we didn't see. All this belongs to Maya. So, how best to define Maya? And those who oppose Advaita Vedanta, like persons like the great saint Ramanuja, Madhva, they attack Advaita Vedanta exactly on the point of Maya. For example, where does Maya reside? Surprisingly, Acharya Shankar has answered all these things, and yet I wonder why these great sages and the great ones who gave rise to great sampradaya, traditions, spiritual traditions, I don't know why they talk like this. I fail to understand. Maybe they were too emotionally attached to their Ishta. Because when you are very deeply attached to your Ishta, you cannot see beyond Ishta. Like Sri Ramakrishna also didn't want to see beyond Ishta. Maya is for the person who is under Maya. A person who is in darkness, he is, he is in darkness. He doesn't know what is light. He doesn't even want to see light. Those who are in light, they can feel the darkness of others, but they themselves are not under darkness. And the person who is in darkness, if he wants to see darkness, cannot see darkness with darkness. And if the light arrives, there will be no darkness to see. Idea being, those who are under the spell of Maya, they are under the spell of Maya. They don't understand it, it's only the others who understand. But it cannot be shown to others. The kind of problem you face, the kind of emotional attachment you have with certain things, certain objects, certain persons, I'll never understand. Similarly, you cannot understand my weaknesses, my attachment to different things. It's not possible. Now, coming to Maya at its higher stage, this very interesting part is that those who have seen the light, those who have attained knowledge, they say that Maya doesn't exist. It never existed. That is, sorry. You should take the case of imprisonment. Somebody was in a prison house and he comes out and he says, well, I was in the prison and now I am out. A person who follows Advaita, who studies Upanishads, who gets trained under a very good teacher. Advaita is not an easy thing. And finally realizes his oneness with the divine. That means he is out of Maya. Will he ever say that I am out of Maya? No, he will not. He will say, I was never under Maya because Maya never existed. And that is why Swami Vivekananda has very beautifully put it. It's a statement of fact. It exists. If you can, if you can feel it, well and good. If you can't feel it, either you don't want to feel it or you're beyond it. I mean, it's a very simple thing. So, calling about where Maya exists and who created Maya, these are mere wordplay. These are word wrangling, idea wrangling, and it leads you nowhere. You simply say that, well, this is my Ishta, I love, and done with it. You want to join, come join. For example, nowadays I don't go out much, but earlier I used to. And some young people, they started loving me and they wanted to be with me. And in whatever language you may put, quite a few young people joined the Ramakrishna mission because of me. When I say because of me, I was just the medium because that vairagya had to be within them. Otherwise, they couldn't have. So it simply has to be, look, this is my way of life. Nowadays, when I'm invited, I politely refuse. I don't want to go anywhere because it's meaningless. People should follow you, seeing your way of life. Now, even if you are talking, why unnecessarily get into word wrangling? If you find something seriously wrong with the system, you can point it out. There it is. You don't have to. So somehow I'm not very appreciative of this kind of discussions. It's a statement of fact. And see, it's not only that Gita and Upanishads talk about Maya. Shankaracharya talks about Maya. Sri Ramakrishna talks about Maya. Swami Vivekananda talks about Maya. So there's no reason. And summing up, Maya is something that appears to be there, yet it doesn't exist. Earlier also we discussed this. This pen, our favorite example, this pen, is a product of Maya. Why? Because it appears to exist, it's there. I'm making use of it. I'm making every use of it. But it doesn't have a permanent reality. What's the definition of permanent reality? It should not be limited in any way, whether by object, by time, or by space. Finished. What about the different relations that we have? We have our parents, we have our friends, we have our loved ones. What are they? A perfect case of Maya. Because they're very much there. They're very much there. But were they your parents in the previous birth? What guarantee is there? And to make a marriage go, people say that marriages are made in heaven. And marriage are for 7 births. I tell you, believe me, don't take me otherwise. The very idea is so frightening. Living with the same person for 7 births. Getting up every morning and seeing the same face for seven births. Oh my God. What a frightening prospect. But this is Maya. People want that. So what will happen in the 8th birth? Probably the counting will begin once again after that. God, frightening. This is Maya. It appears to be there. You make use of it. And then you realize finally that it does not exist. It leaves you. Not only that it leaves you, you find that its existence itself is extinguished. Your parents, you depend so much on them. You make use of them. Without parents, you couldn't have grown. I mean, most of us, there are some whose parents die young. I mean, they grow. But in general, I am talking. And then a time comes when you find that your parents are gone. Your life continues. And then you realize that, well, you made use of it. You made use of your parents and you grew up. You made use of your friends and you grew up. You made use of food and you grew up. You made use of thousands of things and you grew up. If you don't grow up making use of things, there's something seriously wrong with you. What's the use of Maya? Don't take Maya as an illusion. Don't take Maya as delusion. Don't take Maya as false knowledge. Maya is something which appears to be there, but it does not have a permanent reality. And yet we make use of it to grow. If you're not making use of it to grow, there's something wrong with it. For example, if somebody says that, well, this person is my inseparable friend, and you sink there, you're stuck up there. Generally, this does not happen with friends. Sometimes it happens in case of love, conjugal love, or whatever kind of love you may say. This is disastrous. You are ruining yourself because it was such a golden opportunity, because you had somebody whom you loved and you could have easily grown. You could have easily grown up, but you didn't. Rather, you sank. Next time, you will get a far worse person, a far worse object, and you will have to start from a much lower level. Just remember this. Maya is that kind of ladder that helps you go up on the roof. Ladder is not the roof, and yet you need it. So we have to use different kinds of examples to just make us understand that its ultimate goal is to make us grow. Now, since we make use of Maya, normally, you people, you might be thinking that Maya is a delusion. Maya is not delusion. Maya is God's power. Maya is God's power that stays with God, appears as world, and we make use of this world to go back from where we had come. Think of yourself standing on a rooftop. Somehow you fall down a crevice, abyss, or whatever, and then your rescuers, what they do? They make arrangements, put a rope, and you catch hold of that rope, slowly climb up, or you're pulled up. There's no other way. Maya is that rope. Maya is neither the well, Maya is neither the hilltop. Maya is not your rescuer. Maya is not the rescued. Yet, just like that rope, Maya helps you come out. That rope and this example, I mean, we can go on. We have to use many different kinds of examples so that the idea gets impressed. So naturally, reality now runs at two levels, absolute and relative. This is a very serious problem with Vedanta, and extremely difficult for people to grasp, accept, and live by that. In Vedanta, there are two levels of reality, absolute and relative. The relative is that which is run by Maya. Relative is that which is run by Shakti, God's power. Call it by any name. Absolute is absolute. No rule of Maya applies on the absolute. There is nothing of this relative world, of this world that belongs to Maya, which is similar to that, excepting for, you can say, some glimpses of some glimmer of knowledge, love, existence. Dear listeners, particularly those who are deeply interested in this topic, if you're studying Vedanta and if you want to understand Vedanta, know that you can go on asking questions, but you will not understand because you are standing within Maya and trying to ask questions about the absolute. And you are trying to ask questions about Maya itself. No, it's not possible. Think of you have put on your shoe. Now you want to lift your shoe up with the shoelace. You cannot. Newton's third laws of motion apply and action reaction becoming equal. You cannot lift. Nor nor can you lift yourself up. It's because of the gravitation that we succeed. Otherwise, you cannot. Just like that, when you are within Maya, you cannot ask questions about Maya. Worse, you cannot ask questions about the absolute because that reality belongs completely to a different plane. What is the proof of all this? The simplest proof is that when we were kids, we saw reality in a particular way, and as we grew up, there was a mental evolution. We evolved, and as we evolved, our perception of the world, our perception of the reality, it changed. That shows that reality keeps on changing. It shows that perception of reality keeps changing. And scriptures talk about it. The Vedas talk about it. The Upanishads talk about it. Gita talk about it. And the great saints, greatest personalities, they have talked about it. There's one gentleman, I don't know what might be his age, and he tends to get abusive at times. He feels that Advaita is all wrong, and Ramanuja and Mallavacharya, they are being criticized. The problem is that people who come attacking like that, neither they understand Advaita, nor they understand anything that we are trying to explain. Advaita is about something which is absolute, which is absolute. The relative is something which belongs totally to the world. So, for example, physics, chemistry, etc., they belong to this world. But there is a third stage. Third stage is when the absolute appears nearly as absolute within the relative. That is personal God. Personal God, God with form, is non-different from the absolute. It's something people don't want to understand. So, people who belong to the dualistic mode of thought or qualified non-dualism, like Sri Ramanuja, what were they talking about? They're talking about that same absolute appearing within the relative. Why? Because they were devotees, they wanted to retain their ego. And actually, there is no contradiction between these two. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna has repeatedly said. However, Advaita is the last word, as Sri Ramakrishna says. Advaita Shes Katha. Advaita is the last word. It should simply because you have your emotions, that doesn't mean that you will compromise with the truth. And that's why Gaudapada, he has given a thorough explanation of all this. That said, now let's get down to our verse number 57. Yes, Anubhav Das, is he Ramakrishna order monk? Yes. You can check in channel about, I am a Ramakrishna mission monk for 42 years now. I don't know if you are asking this question as some kind of appreciation or some kind of criticism. I can't understand. It's not even needed. Samvritya jayate sarvam shashvatam nasti tena vai. This was partly touched that this entire universe is created by false knowledge. By false knowledge means Maya. Therefore, nothing in it is eternal. Nothing is eternal. Nothing is eternal. Everything again, as one with ultimate reality, is unborn. Therefore, there is no such thing as destruction. The question was that you are talking about Atman, which is beyond all this. Now, what about creation, destruction, which the scriptures talk, and which you also mention once in a while during discussions? Karika explains it absolutely clearly that, remember, whatever is there in this world means the world of the mind. This is the empire of the mind. In this empire of mind, everything is created by Maya. Mind as we understand, that is mind which has vrittis, ripples. This is Maya. Mind without vritti is one with Atman. Let's not unnecessarily get into arguments. Even Patanjali's Yoga Sutra very clearly defines Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Tadha drashtu Swarupe Avasthanam. If Chitta Vritti Nirodha is there, ripples of the mind stop completely, then you become one with Purusha. That is Atman. At other times, Vritti Sarupyam Itaratra. You are what your mental thoughts are. Mental ripples are. Thoughts are mental ripples. Mind is Maya. Mind. Mind which is not active. Mind which is not in a state of agitation, howsoever fine, is one with the absolute. Creation. Whatever creation is within Maya. Maya is one with mind. Mind is one with time, space, causation. All creation, all destruction belong to mind. All creation, all destruction belong to Maya. Atman has nothing to do with it. God doesn't create, God doesn't destroy. Then why we use these words? The, the expression that they use is upachara, just to make us understand, just to give us a common understanding. And reality runs at two levels, says. Reality runs at two levels. And when we explain scriptures, they need to be explained clearly from two standpoints. One is absolute and there is relative. When we are in this relative world, for example, I'm talking about myself. Whatever Jabdyan little I might have done, whatever scriptures I might have studied a bit, I know I'm totally, fully, completely absorbed in Maya. Fully. So for me, all this, whatever is there in this world is true. The pleasure and pain, success and failure, birth and death, everything is real for me. Creation, destruction, this is all real for me. Then why I am talking of this Advaita? Because because in this Maya, I have teachers. Teachers under whom I studied, they belong to this Maya. I trust Maya, and hence I trust my teachers. And those teachers told me that, well, there's a reality beyond it. So I believe their words. Now, when I am talking about Advaita, I am talking just from belief, nothing beyond it. It is not yet truth for me. Well, certain kind of conviction is there, not fully, because uh, if you want to be fully convinced of these truths, you have to go deeper in spiritual life. At the level of the absolute, these things do not matter. At the level of absolute, there is no dharma, there is no papa punya, there is no virtue, there is no sin, There is no birth, there is no death, there is no duality of whatsoever kind. No, nothing. Absolute is absolute. Absolute is infinite. Absolute is unchanging. But absolute has certain traits, and those traits itself are absolute. It exists, it's conscious, it's of the nature of joy. And that is what gives his power. Because it's all consciousness, because it's all knowledge, it thinks, there is creation. So, what is the conclusion from that? The entire creation is just a bubble. It's a mental bubble. Mental is not the right word, but anyway, for us to understand, it's some kind of mental bubble. When Brahma creates from his mind. He thinks and there is creation. What does it imply? Entire creation is just a mental bubble in the mind of Brahma. Why they use this kind of examples? To impress upon our mind that don't take this world as ultimately real. We take things of this world too seriously. We take our emotions too seriously. We take our quarrels and we take our hatred and we take our love too seriously. Don't take. No. They are there. They help us. They make us grow. Fair enough. There it stops. Nothing beyond it. Make use of it, grow, and be free. Be free. That's the only message that these emotions want to convey us. If we fail to realize that, if we fail to make use of it, we have to come back. We have to come back. We have to go back to those emotions. For example, let's take the case of anger. Anger is something that needs to be discarded because anger holds you back. Anger hurts you. Anger hurts you more than it hurts the person to whom anger is applied. What's the best example that you can think of this? Mother. A mom might get angry with her kids, baby. In India, mothers sometimes, not always, sometimes they took out their frustration on their kids. Once I had a very beautiful scene at Belur Math. I was seeing. I was walking and then there was a family. They had come from some village. They must have heard of Belur Math and they had come to visit. And there was a young boy, might be 10, 11 years old, and he was running here and there. He was acting naughty. Or something went wrong. And her mom gave him a slap. And yet instantly, they were walking instantly. She put her arms around her son and pulled him deeply close. It's such a moving sight, such a moving sight. Mom was angry. She gave him a slap. Now that's something quite common in India. And, and yet, the pain that was experienced by the son was nothing compared to the pain that was experienced by the mom. And to get rid of that pain, she pulled her son tight. I must have seen such scenes many times, but hundreds of times. But I could never get out of this. My mind could never let go of this scene. Such a beautiful thing. In life, also, the same thing happens. When you are angry at someone, you hurt yourself more than you hurt the other person. You don't even realize that. And that's how the harm is done. The world teaches us Get rid of anger, get rid of anger. And when you don't get rid of this anger, the bubble becomes a ripple, ripple becomes a wave, and finally that wave deluses you. It causes such disaster that you have to begin nearly from the beginning. That's how it goes. Acharya Shankar, he comments, Maya is very much real. For whom? For people who are in Maya, who accept this world as real. It's by accepting this reality that you grow and go beyond this Maya. This is known as relative, Lokik. Beyond that, that which is our goal is Paramarthik, the absolute. So he says that when you look from the highest standpoint, everything is Atman. When you look from the lower standpoint, reality appears completely differently. I remember I used to ask my teacher very often, I was quite curious about Advaita. And whenever I asked him questions, very often he used to say that, look, you have once again fallen in the pit of duality. The problem is when you want to understand Advaita, you have to get out of the pit of duality, which we cannot do. It takes time now nowadays. Oh, there are so many talks on popular Vedanta. Hmm. Vedanta has become more of pop Vedanta. No, that's not. It's not done that way because slowly people will start getting wrong notion about Vedanta. The philosophy itself will be damaged. Vedanta requires certain rigors. First of all, Vedanta demands that you come out of, at least you should have a semblance of coming out of the sense of duality. Otherwise, you cannot grasp these ideas. These ideas. For such persons, bhakti is good enough. For such persons, Ramanuja's qualified monism or dualism, non-dualism is good enough. Nothing wrong with it. Dharma chaiti jayante jayante tena tattvata janma mayopamam tesham sacha maya na vidyate. Here comes the finest definition of maya. Sacha maya na vidyate. When we talk about souls, when I talk about myself, yourself, when we talk about birth, when we talk about creation, we talk about beings getting born. For example, those of you who have some idea about Christian theology, they'll say that God created this world, God created beings, and He breathed spirit that makes each soul real. Each soul is real. Not in Vedanta. Birth is ascribed to the jivas. We say that so and so is born. And we also believe that there's jivatma, there's a soul in it. But such birth is not possible from the standpoint of reality. If you take reality as absolute reality as the truth, it's not possible. How can it be? How can infinite be born? Their birth is like that of an illusory object. Birth itself is an illusion. That illusion again does not exist. Those of you who are extremely keen, Priyanka ji, could you please just write this part? I don't have the facility of writing. Just Sacha Mayana Vidyate. I'm just highlighting this. Sacha Mayana Vidyate. If you can write, and you can write the English part also. I'll request you people to write it down and memorize it. That whatever is there, whatever we see in this world, it's all product of Maya. And Maya itself does not exist. if you can just sacha mayana vidyate, you can so just you can write it down and keep it in your mind. It's beautiful. Whatever is there is because the duality that we see, birth and death, happiness and misery and good and bad, whatever is there, it's all because of Maya. And yet, that Maya doesn't exist. Frightening is the only word we can use. Just write that illusion is non existent. We don't need to write again. Illusion is non existent. Sacha Maya na vidyate. That Maya doesn't exist. Whenever we are talking about soul getting born, whenever we are talking about creation of the world, creation of the universe, these all find their spread. These all find their extension because of Maya. Because in reality, is no creation, neither of the world, nor of the matter, nor of objects, not even of the soul. What is there? It's all play of Maya. And what is that Maya? Sacha Maya na vidyate. And that Maya itself doesn't exist. Because the moment you accept this world and these souls to be real, true, then Maya also becomes real. If Maya becomes real, then Maya is no more Maya, it becomes Prakriti. It becomes Prakriti, then it becomes Yoga philosophy, Sankhya philosophy, and thousands of other dualistic philosophies. But no, it doesn't exist. This has been explained earlier and it will be discussed once again. Uh, now we will be going very fast because it was the slightly philosophical part which I explained. Now, next some verses will go very fast. Question arises: are there any examples in this world? Okay, fine. I cannot understand all this, but can you give me some examples so that the idea gets impressed in my mind? Karika says yes. Comes verse number 59. Yatha maya mayad vija jayate tanmyo ankurah naso nityo cha chochedi tad dharmesu yojana. Verse number 59. It says that magicians could make some seeds sprout. I have read books where some magician made planted one mango seed, covered it with a basket, lifted it, and there was a sapling, and then covered it again. There was a small tree, and there was mango fruit, and he distributed that mango fruit, etc. I read it in some authentic book. In fact, there are some very good books related to the tradition of magic in India. There's one book named Jadu Walas, and there's another Net of Indra. So I read them and I found that they don't discuss how they perform it, but that these things were performed, there's no doubt about it, including the famous rope trick, where magician throws a rope up. It's an elaborate mechanism. Sometimes this is some kind of illusion. For example, there was this famous magician, PC Sarkar. Now, they play magic. They show us magic through different way, through different tricks. This, I won't say there's any kind of hypnotism, but some kind of illusion is always there. So, says, think of a seed. Think of a seed that gives birth to illusory sprout, the example that I gave you, is born of the illusory seed. And this illusory sprout is neither permanent nor destructible. The same applies to the jivas. Seed is illusory, sprout is illusory. So, can you say that sprout was born? Can you say that it was destroyed? No, you cannot. It's meaningless to say. Why? Well, these things have been discussed earlier, and some more examples will come. If everything is an illusion, you see, I was reading one very beautiful book on magic, and there was the description where some British guest had come, and he was sitting with some Raja, and there was some kind of rope trick, and a head fell, and then leg fell, and this gentleman was startled. It's a recorded incident. And then that Indian Raja, Indian king, he calmed him down and said, "Don't you worry. Nothing is happening. No rope has gone up. No head is falling. Nothing. Just calm down." And whose head had fallen, whose legs had fallen, after some it was seen that he's coming from the audience. We don't know how exactly they performed these illusions. But yes, these illusions were elaborate. Verse number 60 says, Na ajesu sarvadharmeshu shashwat shashwat abhida yatra varnana vartante vivekas tatra nochyate. Is verse number 60. That when we use the terms like permanent and impermanent, these things cannot be applied to the birthless jivas. Soul, Atman, is one with Brahman. So whether they are permanent, whether they are impermanent, we cannot say that. Very often we say that Atman is permanent and this world is impermanent. No, you cannot use these words. These things are used just to impress certain ideas in our mind. Atman. Atman is not permanent in the sense we understand permanent and temporary. No, they are not. They alone exist. What is describable in words, cannot be discriminated about as permanent or impermanent. If you go through the Upanishads repeatedly talk about that indescribable nature of Atman. Why? To describe something, to use a word, to use a name for some objects, first you have to form a mental idea. And when you form a mental idea, mind must be able to grasp it. Mind is limited. Atman is infinite. How can mind grasp something which is infinite? If you have a bag that can hold maybe 1 kg of 1 kilogram of something, and you have 5 kilograms something, how can you put that? No, you cannot. It cannot. Maybe it can touch, it can say it was there, but beyond that, you cannot. Atman, Atman cannot be grasped by mind. So how can it be described by words? And if cannot be described by words, how can you say that it's permanent and it's not permanent? All these things, no, it's meaningless. Why? Because the scriptures have said so. Should we be blind followers? Not at all. The discussion that has been going on, it has been going on absolutely logical basis. After a time, logic stops, and then you say that, okay, fine. These are the words of the masters. But if you ask me, ultimately it's your mental orientation. Try howsoever you may. If you are quite emotional, you will end up being a devotee of God. So for you, dualism in this form or that form, that is what you have. And If your mind is constructed on different patterns, which actually means that you have been doing sadhana on a particular line for many births, Advaita will attract you. Just this much. So you cannot say that Atman is Nitya, Atman is Anitya, Atman is permanent, it's impermanent. You cannot use these expressions. It's meaningless. So to ask, what is there beyond mind? Is a silly idea. How can you ask what is there beyond mind? Because to know what is beyond mind, mind has to be there. And you're saying what is beyond mind? These are, in logic, these are considered to be useless statements. यथा स्वप्ने द्वयाभासम चित्तम चलति माया तथा जागृत द्वयाभासम चित्तम चलति माया. Verse number 61 and verse number 62. Advayam cha dvayabhasam chittam swapne na sanshayah. Advayam cha dvayabhasam tatha jagran na sanshayah. This is, says, as in dreams, the mind acts through maya. In dream state, your mind creates lots of objects. It acts through maya because the objects and the ideas and the emotions that appear in your mind during dream, they are all real to you when you are in dream. Your dream body gets sated when you eat well. Your thirst gets slaked when you drink. But it's all product of maya. Presenting the appearance of duality, so also in the waking state, the mind acts through maya. In the dream state, it's maya that creates the objects. It's maya through mind. Actually, mind and maya, they are same. Same happens in the waking state too. Problem with us is that we consider dream state to be inferior to the waking state, which is not a fact. Actually, waking state and dream state, they're absolutely same from the standpoint of the supreme reality. They're both unreal. They're products of mind. The objects are products of mind. We have discussed it earlier also. So there is no doubt that the mind, which is in reality non-dual, Atman, appears to be dual in dreams. You are one. You alone are one. When you are dreaming, when you are sleeping, you are one. And yet now you appear as many. In waking state also the same thing happens. You alone exist. And yet you appear as many. It's you who appears as many. Just think. Not in the dream state, in the waking state. This is what is being shown, that actually mind is non-different from Atman. Absolutely, it has no difference, because when the agitation of mind stops, it becomes one with the Atman. If it becomes one with Atman, actually it is Atman. Yet it appears fragmented. Because it appears fragmented, it presents reality as fragmented before us. And because of that, the non-dual now appears as dual. The only way, the little gateway, little hole that's left for us to understand is that if you try to analyze the dream state, you'll realize how you have become many. Well, so we are not trying to reach a conclusion through analogy. Analogy is being given just to make us understand all the discussions that were there earlier. So Atman says, the mind which is in reality non-dual appears to be dual in dreams. Likewise, there is no doubt that what is non-dual, that is Atman, appears to be dual in the waking state. In the waking state, In the waking state, if you ask me what is Maya, I'll say to think that waking state is real. As the best example, there's a best definition of Maya, to think that waking state is real, nothing else. We consider God to be unreal, we consider dream to be real, and we consider our waking state to be unreal, two unreals, and in between there is one real. So we think that our mind is manufacturing God, our mind is manufacturing the dream, and I am the real. No, it's not that. You have to go one step further. As Atman, you are real. As waking state, you are unreal. As dream, you are unreal. So that covers verse number 62. And no, we have covered too much. We'll begin with verse number 63. Thank you so much. Shanti.